Carlos Alcaraz and Juan Carlos Ferrero are not working together anymore.
Carlos Alcaraz just dropped a bombshell that nobody saw coming. After more than 7 years together, he's splitting with Juan Carlos Ferrero, the coach who turned him from a kid with dreams into a multi-Grand Slam champion. The announcement came out of nowhere, and tennis fans are freaking out. This partnership built one of the biggest stars in tennis, and now it's over. Something serious happened here.
In my opinion, this was the best season from Alcaraz by far. This is the most consistent season that Alcaraz has ever had, for sure. And it was shocking to read this morning that Alcaraz has decided to split with Juan Carlos Ferrero, who has coached him since Carlos Alcaraz was 15 years old.
Before we get into what this means for Alcaraz's future, drop a comment. Do you think this split will hurt his career? Or is this a smart move for both of them? I genuinely want to hear your predictions because this could go either way.
Yeah, so Carlos dropped a statement on Instagram kind of overnight here in the States. In beginning it, he wrote, this is very hard for me to write this post. After more than 7 years together, Juan Carlos and I have decided to bring our time together as coach and player to an end. He went on to say that Ferrero turned his childhood dream into a reality, and towards the end of the statement wrote, "Now times of change are coming for both of us with new adventures and new projects, but I'm certain we'll face them the right way, giving the best of ourselves, just as we always have, always adding. I truly wish you all the best in everything that lies ahead. I'm left with peace of mind knowing we gave everything we had, that we left nothing unshared, and that we put it all at each other's disposal."
Carlos Alcaraz just posted something on social media that sent shockwaves through the tennis world. After more than 7 years of working together, he and Juan Carlos Ferrero are done. Finished, going their separate ways. And the way Alcaraz wrote about it makes it sound like this wasn't an easy decision. He called it very difficult to even write the post, which tells you this wasn't some casual parting of ways where both sides were ready to move on. This hurt. This was emotional. And that raises serious questions about what actually happened behind the scenes.
Now, Juan Carlos also took to Instagram, posting a statement starting with, "Saying goodbye is never easy, especially when there are so many shared experiences behind it," going on to say, "Today, a very important chapter of my life comes to an end. I close it with nostalgia, but also with pride and excitement for what may come next. I know that everything I have lived has prepared me for the better."
Let's start with what Alcaraz actually said because the wording matters. He wrote, "After more than 7 years together, Juanqui and I have decided to end our time together as coach and player." Notice the careful language there. They decided to end it. That's mutual breakup language. Nobody's getting blamed publicly. Nobody's throwing anyone under the bus. But that doesn't mean this was a smooth, planned transition. When coaching partnerships end at the absolute peak of success, something went wrong. You don't fire your coach after winning multiple Grand Slams and having the best season of your career unless there's a real issue. Alcaraz went on to thank Ferrero for turning childhood dreams into realities, which is true. Ferrero took a kid who was barely a teenager and molded him into one of the most dominant players in tennis. They started working together when Alcaraz was around 14 years old. That's before he had won anything significant. That's before anyone outside of Spain knew who he was. Ferrero saw something in this kid and dedicated years to developing him into a champion. And it worked beyond anyone's wildest expectations. Alcaraz won 2 Grand Slam titles this year at Roland Garros and the US Open. He won 8 total titles, which was a career best. He had 71 match wins, the most on the ATP Tour. He beat Jannik Sinner twice in 5-set classics at the 2 biggest tournaments of the year. He was on top of the tennis world. And now, at that exact moment of peak success, he's splitting with the coach who got him there. That doesn't add up unless something significant changed in their relationship or their vision for the future. The post talks about how they reached the top together, and that if their paths had to part ways, it had to be from up there, from the place they always worked towards. That's poetic and all, but it's also classic breakup language trying to make something difficult sound planned and mutual. It's the "it's not you, it's me" of professional sports. We grew apart. We accomplished everything we set out to do. time to move on. Except nobody buys that when you're 22 years old and just had your best season ever. You don't break up with your coach when everything is going perfectly. Alcaraz emphasized that Ferrero helped him grow not just as an athlete, but as a person, which he values so much. That personal connection is what makes this split so surprising. This wasn't just a professional relationship. This was someone who helped raise him during his teenage years. Someone who was there for the good moments and the bad. Someone who understood him on a deeper level than just tennis strategy. Walking away from that kind of relationship suggests there was friction that couldn't be resolved. He also said he's left with the peace of mind of knowing we didn't hold anything back, that we gave everything we had for each other. Again, that's reassuring language designed to make fans feel like this was amicable. But it also sounds like someone trying to convince himself that this was the right decision. When you have to publicly state that you gave everything and have no regrets, it usually means you're dealing with some regrets and trying to process a difficult choice. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Alcaraz isn't left without a coach. Samuel Lopez is still part of his team and has been for the last couple of years. In fact, Ferrero and Lopez won Coach of the Year together in 2025 for their work with Alcaraz. So it's not like Alcaraz is going into the new season completely alone. But losing Ferrero, who was the head coach and the primary voice in his development, is still a massive change. Lopez might be capable of stepping into that lead role, or Alcaraz might bring in someone new to replace Ferrero. Either way, this represents a significant shift in how his team operates. The big question everyone's asking is, why now? Why would you make this change after having your best season? There are a few possible explanations, and none of them are great. One possibility is that Ferrero wanted to step back or retire from coaching at this level. He's a former world #1 himself. He's accomplished everything as a coach. Maybe he's tired of the travel and the grind. Maybe he wants to spend more time with family or focus on his academy. That would be the most innocent explanation, and it would make sense why Alcaraz framed this as mutual. Another possibility is that Alcaraz wanted to make a change because he felt like he needed a different voice or a new perspective to take the next step in his career. Maybe he felt like he'd learned everything he could from Ferrero and needed fresh ideas to continue improving. That happens sometimes with young players who grew up with one coach. They reach a point where they need someone new to challenge them differently. It's not necessarily a criticism of the previous coach. It's just recognizing that different phases of a career require different approaches. But there's also a third possibility that's less pleasant to consider. They had a falling out. Maybe there was a disagreement about training methods, scheduling, or how to handle certain situations. Maybe there was tension that built up over time and finally reached a breaking point. Maybe Ferrero said or did something that Alcaraz couldn't get past. We don't know, and we probably never will because both sides are being extremely professional in how they're discussing this publicly. But the timing and the emotional tone of Alcaraz's post suggest this wasn't a clean, easy decision. The tennis world is already speculating about who might replace Ferrero. Some names being thrown around include former top players who have transitioned into coaching. People are mentioning David Ferrer, another Spanish former top 10 player who understands clay court tennis and could bring a different tactical approach. Others are suggesting Alcaraz might look outside Spain for a coach with experience developing young champions, someone like Ivan Lendl, or even reaching out to someone like Patrick Mouratoglou, who has worked with multiple Grand Slam champions. But here's the thing. Finding a coach who can match what Ferrero brought to the table is incredibly difficult. Ferrero wasn't just tactically brilliant. He understood Alcaraz on a personal level because he'd been with him since he was a kid. He knew how to motivate him, how to calm him down, how to push him without breaking him. That kind of relationship takes years to build. You can't just hire someone new and expect that same level of connection immediately. That's why coaching changes, even when they seem necessary, are always risky. The impact of this split on Alcaraz's performance is the biggest unknown. Some players thrive after coaching changes because the new voice gives them fresh motivation and new ideas. Others struggle because they lose the stability and familiarity that allowed them to succeed in the first place. Alcaraz is young and adaptable, which works in his favor. But he's also been with Ferrero for his entire professional career. He doesn't know what it's like to compete at this level without Ferrero in his corner. That's scary. The first few tournaments of 2026 are going to be crucial. How does Alcaraz perform without Ferrero? Does he look the same? Or is there a noticeable difference in his game or his demeanor? Does Samuel Lopez step up as the lead voice, or does Alcaraz bring in someone new? Those answers will tell us a lot about whether this was a smart move or a mistake. Ferrero's statement, whenever he releases one, will also be telling. So far, he hasn't publicly commented beyond whatever Alcaraz mentioned in his post. If Ferrero comes out and echoes everything Alcaraz said, that this was mutual, that it was time, that he's proud of what they accomplished, then maybe this really is just a natural ending. But if there's any hint of bitterness or frustration in how he discusses it, that will confirm suspicions that something went wrong. This also raises questions about Ferrero's future. Is he done coaching at the elite level? Will he go back to focusing full-time on his academy? Will another top player try to hire him now that he's available? Ferrero is still relatively young for a coach and has proven he can develop a champion. If he wants to continue coaching, there will be players interested in working with him. But maybe he's ready to step away from the tour life and do something different. For Alcaraz, the pressure is now on to prove this was the right decision. If he struggles in the first few months of 2026, people will immediately blame the coaching change. If he continues dominating and wins more Grand Slams, everyone will say he made a brilliant move. That's the reality of high-level sports. Results dictate narratives. And right now, Alcaraz is betting that he can maintain or even improve his level without the coach who's been with him since the beginning. The emotional weight of this decision shouldn't be underestimated either. Alcaraz is 22 years old. He's still figuring out who he is as a person, not just as a player. Ferrero was a constant presence during his most formative years. Losing that relationship, even if it's the right professional decision, is going to be difficult. Athletes often underestimate how much stability and familiarity contribute to their performance. Changing that dynamic creates uncertainty, and uncertainty can affect confidence. Fans are divided on this. Some think it's a natural progression and that Alcaraz needs new challenges to keep improving. Others think it's a huge mistake to change something that was clearly working. The truth is probably somewhere in between. Maybe this split needed to happen for reasons we don't fully understand. Maybe both Alcaraz and Ferrero will be better off in the long run. But in the short term, this creates questions and concerns that won't be answered until we see Alcaraz compete without Ferrero in his corner. So there you have it. Carlos Alcaraz and Juan Carlos Ferrero are done after 7 years, and nobody really knows why. The next few months will tell us whether this was a brilliant move or a massive mistake. If you want to follow this story as it develops, hit that like button and subscribe. Who do you think Alcaraz should hire as his new coach? Drop your prediction below.